Welcome to our second talk in the series on trusting God. We're looking at Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not to your own understanding. In all your ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct your paths. We said firstly that to trust in the Lord is based on the character of God. It's based on the fact that we have confidence in the nature and character of God. We believe that God is who he says he is. But then secondly, God takes all that he is by nature, his character, and he backs up all his promises with who he is. So we can also say secondly that to trust in the Lord is based on a confidence in the word of God. We believe not only that God is who he says he is, but that he will do what he says he will do. In Isaiah 40 verse 8 it says, the grass withers and the flower fades, but the word of God shall stand forever. Isaiah 46 verse 11, God says, I have spoken and I will do it. I have purposed and I will bring it to pass. Proverbs 30 verse 5, every word of God is pure. He is a shield to those that put their trust in him. Now, there are many verses in the Bible that speak out blessing. We would be blessed. There's blessing for those who obey God, who trust God, and put their hope in God. Psalm 40 verse 4 is an example where it says, blessed is the person who makes the Lord his trust. Now, the word blessed or blessing is a very rich word. It contains the understanding of joy and peace and happiness and hope and contentment and provision. All these wonderful blessings. But the root meaning of the word is it's all those wonderful things independent of the circumstances in which you find yourself. So if you trust in God, you will be blessed with hope, with peace, with provision, with joy, independent of the circumstances in which you find yourself. And one of the things we'll emphasize during this series of talks on trusting God, that trusting God is based on who God is and on the Word of God, and it's not dependent on the circumstances in which we find ourselves. But today, as we look at trust being based on the promises and the principles of the Word of God, it's important to understand that God's promises are all conditional. We know that the love of God for us is unconditional. We don't have to do anything to be loved more by God. There's nothing we've done that takes away from God's love. God's love is unconditional. But the other side of the coin is that God's promises all have conditions. We can't violate the conditions and still expect the blessing. We can't live in disobedience to God and disregard the principles of the Word of God and get away with it. Now, there are many examples in the Bible, and let me just share a few with you, just from Proverbs 3. For example, it says, my son, forget not my teachings, but let your heart keep my commandments. Right, there's the condition. And then for length of days and long life and peace shall they add to you. So as we obey God, the promise is prosperity and provision. Another part of Proverbs 3 is, let not mercy and truth forsake you. So walking mercy and truth. Then it says, for then you'll receive favor in the sight of God and man. Another example is in verse 7 and 8. Fear the Lord and depart from evil. So there's the condition. We fear God and depart from evil. And the promise is it shall be health to your body and nourishment to your bones. There's the promise. And then in verse 9 and 10, it talks about honor God with the first fruit of all your increase. So that's the principle, the condition. We honor God with our increase. Then it says, your barn shall be filled with plenty and your vat shall burst forth with new wine. So we obey God. We live up to the principles of the Word of God because we trust God. We trust in the veracity of the Word of God, and we believe and we have confidence in the character of God. Psalm 103 verse 7 is an interesting psalm which says, an interesting verse which says, God made known his ways to Moses, but his acts to the children of Israel. So we don't only want people that hear of God's acts or see that God does things, but we want to understand the ways of God. So we want to trust in the character of God. We want to trust in the principles and the promises and understand the ways of God. So we need to get to know God, and we need to get to know the ways of God, so that there's a big firm foundation for us to step onto as we take steps of faith and trust. May God bless you as you get to know him more, and as you get to discover confidence in the principles and the promises in the Word of God.